Today we're going to be making a pork steak meal. We're going to need some orange juice, some apples, an orange, that's a mandarin orange, a little cutie. And then here, of course, we've got our cabbage. That's just a half of head that I had used earlier. Then, of course, we've got our onion, bell peppers, a jalapeno. I've got a large clove and a small clove of garlic, and then we've got some green onions here, and I'll tell you what we're going to do with those when we get to it. We've got some butter. Then, of course, our spices. We got salt and pepper. We've got some jamon. That is a ham-flavored seasoning. Fantastic seasoning. Our onion powder. Our garlic powder. Our sazion. And then some Maggi pollo. So we're going to go ahead and get right on started and get seasoned up our meat here. Just get a little salt and pepper on it. And we're going to season both sides. And that's just our salt. And then our pepper. And then we're going to go in with our onion powder. And then our garlic powder. And our sazion. So I reach across the camera there. This is a meal that's going to satisfy everybody. You got your meat. And then for the steamed cabbage, that's going to satisfy the vegetarians and the applesauce. So just an amazing meal. I may cook a little rice on the side. We'll see how that goes. And we're going to flip these over and go ahead and season the other side. I'm just going to do the same seasonings on the other side. So when I get that done, I'll come back and we'll start cutting up the veggies. All right, let's go ahead and get this cabbage cut up. And all I'm going to do is just peel off the top layer. It usually starts to get wilted on you. And then I'm going to cut out the core. That core part right there. I'm just going to cut that right out of there. And all I do is just kind of come down like this. Like that. Man, rascal shit pop right out of there. There we go. Now I'm not going to throw that away. I'm going to save that because I have a request to do a vegetable stock. And I'm going to use that cabbage core to put in my stock. Now what I'd like to do to get my cabbage cut out, just cut it down the middle like this here. Just kind of flip it over. Cut it one more time. Because I'm looking, sometimes I'll shred, but I don't want this one shredded. I want this kind of in chunks because we're just going to steam it. So you kind of want that, you know, about that size. Maybe even just cut that in half. And we'll do something about like that. And all I'm doing is just cutting that over like that. Get the sizes that I want. And then I've got a colander down here in the sink. And I'm just putting that down in the colander. And what we're going to do is rinse it. And then just kind of let it hang out. And let all the water just kind of drain out of it. Because you don't want to put extra water down in your cabbage. Because cabbage itself is pretty watery. Remember, I told you guys, my daughter and I are still doing our fast for another 2 weeks. So this suits us. All right, now what I'm going to do is, I think those are fine enough pieces. And I tell you what, guys, the other half of that cabbage is what I made last night. And it's all gone. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did last night. And it was phenomenal. All I'm doing now go in there because sometimes cabbage can have a little sand or something in there. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a good rinse. Alright, and then we're just going to let that hang out. And let that sit in the sink here and drain. And then I'm going to cut up my veggies. And you guys have seen me cut up veggies. So the only thing you haven't seen me do yet is cut up a jalapeno. So I'm going to get these veggies here cut up and I'll come back before I do the jalapeno. All right, and we're back, and we're gonna do the jalapeno. I just cut the top of it off, cut the bottom off, and then I slice it right down the middle, because this is where your heat lives, right here, with the ribs and the seeds. I am about the only one in the family that likes spicy foods. My family does not, so I take this out for my family. And all I do is, as you see, just go right down the side there, and it pops right out for you. You get the ribs and you get the seeds, and you go ahead and discard those. And you can just scrape off any seeds that's there. As you can see, I leave a little teeny bit of rib right there. That's for me. That just gives a little bit of heat, but nothing that they'll even notice most of the time. Okay, and I'm just gonna go down, and because this one is a jalapeno, and I forgot to show you, I actually stripped these. I wanted these in strips. Okay, so they're in strips like that. And so are my onions. For the cabbage, that's how I want those. But for the jalapeno, I'm going to actually dice these up a little smaller because I want the flavor of the jalapeno, but I don't want my family to bite down in a big piece of jalapeno because, like I said, they're not really fans. They'll take the flavor, but if it gives them any little bit of a heat, they're just not fans for that. All right. So, it doesn't have to be real small because it's going to cook down. But I just want to give it a nice little dice as opposed to leaving it in strips. Your bell peppers are nice and sweet. You can leave those in strips and they're going to be delicious. And the last thing I got here is the garlic. All you do is go ahead and give that garlic a good whack. Just like that. Whack that one too. And then this helps to remove your skin, just like that. Give it a good whack and that skin comes right off. If you don't, that skin's not coming off so easy. Let me tell you what I'm gonna do with this. Normally I would chop it up because, nobody wants to bite into a chunk of garlic either. But for this particular dish, what I did last night is I just left it in little discs, just like this. That's how I'm gonna leave it tonight. Because again, it just cooks down in the flavor land, but I just love garlic. And so if I get a nice little chunk of garlic like that, I don't mind. I've got another recipe that I do exactly this with garlic and spinach. And my goal is to show you that one real soon. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna get these sauteed up. So I'll meet you over at the stove here in just a little bit. And I'll be back. Okay, and actually we're going to go ahead and get started on our applesauce. And all I'm going to do is go ahead and peel these apples up real quick. I've got two and a half apples actually. There's half of it right there. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with that other half. Part of it's going to go in the applesauce. The other part of it, I've got something pretty interesting to do with that. And I'll show you when I get to that part. All we're going to do with this apple is just peel it like this. Cut it down center. Cut it in quarters. Go in and take out the core like so. You need to go in. That's why a paring knife is better with this one here. So you can go in and get all that core out and all that out. And all I'm going to do is slice it just like this here. And it's going to go in the pan. We get these other two done. The rest of them done, and I'll be back. All right, guys, I just want to pop back in real quick. I'm still working on the apples here. But just to explain, this is the same cutting board, but I washed this cutting board and flipped it over and washed my knife. Because what you don't want is to transfer the onions and the peppers and the garlic into your applesauce. That's not a good flavor. All right. Well, I got you here. Let me mention something that I am planning on doing when I reach 100 subscribers. So start telling your family, tell your friends, tell everybody. Check out my videos. This is going to be my third one. And when we reach 100, there is something really fun that we're going to do. So stay tuned for that. Keep spreading the word. I'll be right back. All right. For the applesauce, I just cut my little cutie in half, and I'm using my little lime squeezer here. I'm just going to squeeze all that juice right down into my apples. Now, that's not going to give me nearly enough juice, but anytime I can use anything fresh, I go for it. And I just happen to have this cutie. So there he goes. Now, you don't have to use orange juice. You can use pineapple juice. You can use apple juice. You can use water. But I like building flavors wherever I can. This here is just my orange juice. And I will have measurements, I promise. I am putting, as you guys see, just a splash. It's just enough to kind of move it around because the apples are going to make juice for themselves. So that's probably quarter cup maybe. I'm going to do a good tablespoon of sugar. Put that in there like that. Maybe 2.5 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'll go back and taste it after it gets done and see if I need a little bit more. And then just a sprinkle of cinnamon. Put that on top like that. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, that smells good already. Man, that smells good, guys. Okay, I'm just gonna take this over to the stove, put it on low, put a cap on it, and let it go. All right, we're gonna get started on our cabbage over here at the stove. What I've got here is some butter. We're gonna put about 2 tablespoons of butter down into the pan. That's 1. And that's 2. Now let that get melted up. And to that, I'm gonna add a splash of chicken broth. Remember my fat-free chicken broth. When I say a splash, I do mean just a splash. And that's what's gonna help to steam our cabbage. This is for our cabbage. All right, so I'm gonna just let that go and let that get melted. Once that butter melts, I'll come back and show you we'll put the cabbage in. All right, here's our butter. 2 tablespoons of butter, and a little splash of chicken broth. I'm gonna go ahead and season this up before we put our cabbage in it. So I'm gonna this is our jamon seasoning. I'm gonna go ahead and put about half of this package in there. I ended up using a whole package last night, and I did less cabbage than I'm doing tonight. So I will use the rest of that. And then we're gonna do a little salt, a little pepper, a little more pepper. This is our onion powder, a little onion powder, a little garlic, and a little bit of our Maggi pollo. All right. Get that in there. Get that nice and mixed up and seasoned up. The secret to seasoning any of your leafy vegetables, your greens, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, if you're steaming them like this here, is you want to get that broth tasting good. I'm not going to taste that because I know it's good, but if you were to taste it, that is delicious right there. That's flavor. So now we're going to get our cabbage down in there. All right, we're actually going to go ahead and slide our veggies on down in there. And I'm going to use all these veggies, every bit of it. Let's go ahead and put all that down in there. Give that a nice little swirl. And let that come back up to temperature. And then once these get a little sauteed, we'll put our cabbage in. I'll be back when it's time for that. All right. We're back. As you can see, we got them. They're starting to saute up. But I don't want them to cook. Not really. I just wanted to get them started before I put the cabbage in, because I don't want them mushy. I want them to be a part of the cabbage dish. But I did want just a tad bit more liquid. So I'll put a little bit more in. I'm going to go over and get our cabbage and dump our cabbage in here. I'll be right back. All right, here's our cabbage, and our colander has been sitting there draining all the excess water out of it. Let's go ahead and dump that in there like that. Oh my goodness, y'all. This is so delicious and guilt-free, let me tell you. I ate this last night. Actually, I took it to work today for lunch, and I ate it completely guilt-free. It didn't matter how much I had of it. It was just so good. Now, what you're going to do is go ahead and season up the top of the cabbage. Same seasonings, do less on the salt. Just be careful with your salt. Okay, and then this jamon seasoning, I'm going to put the rest of that packet in there. This does have salt. The jamon and the Maggi pollo are the only seasonings that I'm using tonight that also have a salt base. So just be kind of careful with those. Then your garlic. A little bit of the onion powder. And I'm just going to put a lid on that. And that's going to let that steam down for a little bit. I'll be back when it starts to cook and I'll show you what it's looking like. All right, and we're back. I just want to give you a peek and see what our apples are doing. If you can tell, we got a little bubbling going here. They're nowhere near done. Just kind of give a peek, see, and see how that water is doubled. That's why you just want just a little bit of liquid. Now back over here at the cast iron skillet, I got that rascal going with just enough canola oil to cover the bottom of it. And as you can tell, it is screaming hot, which is exactly what I want because I want to get a nice crust on my pork steaks. So we're going to go ahead and get these pork steaks in. Just going to drop them in. And don't mess with them. Get that nice sear on there. We're going to do about 4 or 5 minutes per side. I'll come back and I'll let you know when they're ready to be flipped over. All right, let's take a peek in down at our cabbage. You can see we got our water boiling. It has reduced in size, and that's exactly what cabbage is going to do for you. It'll reduce pretty much in half. And so I'll show you. This is only going to cook maybe another 5-10 minutes tops because you don't want this mushy. I want it to still have some bite to it. But I'm going to give it another couple of minutes, and I'll be back and I'll show you what we're going to do with that apple and those green onions. I'll be back. All right, we're back with the cabbage. It's just about done. Right before it gets done, remember that half an apple? Half of an apple I told you about? That's what this is. Go ahead and just chop it up and just put it in, little dices. Not anything fancy, anything specific. Just go ahead and dump that right on in there. Oh my goodness. It just gives another little note of sweetness as opposed to sugar. Because, a lot of people will put sugar in their cabbage, and it's good that way too. But opposed to that, just put a little apple in there. And that is a red crisp apple. This here's that green onions I was telling you about. This here's the white part. I'm going to go ahead and put that white part in there now. And the reason I put it in there later is because I don't want it to cook all the way down. I want it to have a nice big crunch to it. It has great flavor. And then what I'm going to do with this green part is, again, in about a minute or two, I'm going to come back and put that green in there. I'm going to cover this up and give this another minute or two. But before I do that, let me grab the top actually. Go over and look at that meat. Take a look at this. You should be ready to flip this baby. And what I'm looking for, you see those red juices right there? That's what I'm looking to disappear. So I'll cook it enough on this side. It's gone about 7 minutes on this side. And look at that. Oh, baby, look at that. Go ahead and flip this one. And that's what you want. All this time, he's been cooking on a medium high, almost high. Now I got it flipped over. I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to a nice, not quite medium, but not medium high either. Just a little bit. So I've got a gas stove here, but the dial is down on like 3. I'm going to let that go for just a little bit. Let's take a peek and see what our apples are doing. We should be getting there. Take a look-see down in there. Oh, yeah. Oh, they smell divine. Let me tell you. They smell divine. They're almost tender as I want them. Not quite. All right. I am going to grab a spoon and taste that juice, though. Be right back. All right. Let's see what we're tasting like here. Look at that. Look at that juice. Oh, my goodness. That's perfect. It's sweet. It's tangy. You got that hint of cinnamon. That is just perfect, y'all. We're going to keep letting that go. All right. We'll be back in just a little bit. Okay. I just want to let you peek down in this meat again. The way that I tell my meat, my pork, my beef, anything like that is done. I don't know if you can tell or not, but that puddle of juice right there, that's still red. Okay, so I want that to turn clear. And so I'm just looking for clear juices. And also, you can kind of pat your meat. You can tell by the feel of it. You know, I don't know if you can tell or not how much that's giving in and going in. But that's what I'm looking for. So that's all I'm doing. I'm going to flip this over a little bit again. See, the other side is just caramelized. It's beautiful. So at this point, just turn the fire down just a tad more. I don't want to turn it too low because at that point, it will start to steam. I don't want these steaming. Okay, these are fried without being fried, so they're healthier fried. So we use just a little bit of canola oil and its own juices, its own grease, should I say, its own oil, its own fat. All right, I'll be back. We should be done in about a minute, and we'll be back. All right, back here at our apples. I'm just gonna slide this pot out, this skillet out of the way, but that's okay. You can see down there at my apples, right? They are done. I've taken a fork. I poked a fork in them. They are tender, just the way I want them. They taste phenomenal. But you see that juice? I want it just a tad, I do mean a tad, thicker. I want something to kind of coat my apples. So what I've done is I have turned the fire up just a little bit so I can kind of get it bubbling and boiling again. And that should happen almost instantly because it's still very hot. See that going there? What I have here is a little cornstarch slurry. All that is half a teaspoon, maybe a quarter teaspoon of cornstarch and some cold water, and I just mix it up. You add this to any type of boiling liquid like this here, it thickens up right before your eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and put probably not even all of that in there. I'm just gonna start just right there. But all I want that to do is kind of congeal and give me a little bit of a sauce. You know, it's gonna coat my apples. Put just a tad bit more. And let's see what that does. All right, I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, if you look and see now, I'm not sure if you can tell or not just by looking, but see it's not watery anymore. I've got like a syrup going now. And as it cools, it'll give me exactly what I'm looking for, that coating on my apple. All right, I'm gonna take a peek down in here. Our cabbage is all done. I've got it turned off. That's over here. There it is. I don't want that excess water down in there. But there's our cabbage. All right, I'm gonna make us a plate, and I'll be right back. All right, y'all, here we go, the finished product. This is it. We got our pork steak, applesauce, steamed cabbage. Thank you again for joining me here in Angel's Kitchen. But before I let you go, I'm gonna show you what this meat looks like down on the inside of here. It is just, oh, look at that. Tender, cutting like butter. Just absolutely, completely done. Juicy as can be. All right, and as always, thank you so much for joining me in Angel's Kitchen. You have a blessed day. Stay prayed up. Good night.